Don.
Hello. Oh, hi, everyone. Tonight, I'm in the driver's seat tonight, and Miss V is going to be riding shotgun, I guess. Tonight's show, we have Dave Pardue and Ed Peters. Dave Pardue is a longtime researcher. Many strange sightings, cryptid sightings, and reptile sightings, alien sightings. We'll be going over some of those and his partner in research for the past 15 years, Ed Peters. And shout out to Margaret and Elizabeth, his daughters. Um, and I needed to shout out to Dave's wife. Miss V wants to let everyone know that Dave has a hot wife, a beautiful
A
wife.
beautiful girlfriend,
And
Trish. And I love
oh,
her.
girlfriend. Okay. Yeah, Miss V had me say that. I guess we'll start with Dave.
Yep.
Give us a background on what you've been doing and how long you've been doing everything.
Uh, I had my very first sighting when I was 16 on my aunt's farm, and I'll be real brief with it. Had one run across the tobacco field, and it was huge. And at the time, I didn't even know Bigfoot lived in North Carolina, and went down. Seen the huge tracks, and in comparison to the body to the 5 foot tobacco plants or so, this thing was hitting under his arm. The tops of the tobacco were hitting right under the armpits when it run across the field. And then it didn't dawn on me how big this thing was when I first saw it. But then once you get down there and you're walking into the tobacco yourself, and you're like, well, wait a minute, this guy's chest was way over my head. And that just, I'd already been intrigued with Bigfoot since I was a kid. And, with the Patterson footage and Boggy Creek and all that. And so, uh, just one thing led to another. Then I had an interest in it. I heard stories. Every story I heard on the news, or this is pre-internet. Uh, I'd track down and learn as much as I could, and then the internet come into play, and I found the BFRO. Went on an expedition up in West Virginia, and that was my first professional. We're going out here to look, and I had a really incredible encounter that very first weekend with the BFRO. They asked me to be an investigator for them, and I continued that. I was a North Carolina field investigator until 2014. I can't remember the month. And since then, I've been doing it privately with friends, and I've got my own YouTube channel. It's fledgling, uh, and I take investigations. I do private investigations. I do stuff with Victoria and Johnny, as well as Ed. Ed's my wingman. He's the local guy here, and I try to get him to go with me on as much as I can. We've done a lot together in different states, so uh, I've
One
shared.
question. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you notice a difference in research with going out with groups or with just you and a buddy or alone?
Yeah,
You
uh,
do.
everybody does it different. I have over the last 25 years of doing this seriously, uh, I've developed a technique, and it's proven. I've proven it to myself. Victoria have seen my pictures, my video. Uh, I have them coming up to me. Uh, just this past October, me and Ed were in our research area, and the weekend before, I'd had two come up on me, but I'm not sure what they were. One looks like a little alien guy. Victoria's seen the pictures.
Huh.
Another one's got a pure white face, almost looks like it's got a screen mask on. They come up on me, and that was in broad daylight. That was at 12 noon, between 12 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And
Were you looking for Bigfoot and these came up?
yeah,
Can I ask if you don't have to get too specific, but that way you call them in or get them in, is it a call?
no, I've been
Okay.
going to the same area for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Ed is like one of two people that know exactly where it's at. and they know me. I've been dealing with them so long, and they come up to me. And Victoria can tell you just about every time she's been in the woods with me, something happens. And maybe it's not always Bigfoot. I've got some weird stuff on film in that area. And
when we went to the western North Carolina, when I seen the orange orb, you got some pretty creepy stuff on that. And we were out on the Bigfoot.
yeah, that one looks like a
area.
Yeah, that one looks like a tall mantis type with the big eyes, the whole 9 yards. And then we done a private investigation in another area in North Carolina, and I got one that looks like a big gecko sticking its head up through the brush looking at us. I saw the eye shine. The picture I took doesn't show eye shine; they're jet black, but looks like the gecko head sticking up out of the brush, but it's human size.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So there's down in that area, yeah, you do get a lot of those stories down there of strange things down there.
Yep.
You worry.
Yeah, and you worries. I've got Ed seen it, Victoria's seen it. Over 2 hours of footage of a little 30-inch tall reptilian looking thing staring at us 25 feet away. And I filmed that one so long I got tired of filming it. And the guy that was with me, David Moser, I had him flank it, and I charged it just to see what it would do, and it just blanked out of existence. But that one you couldn't see with the naked eye. You couldn't see it with night vision. It would only show up on thermal, but it's clearly there. I've shown it to a number of people, and I've used it in presentations, and I don't know what it is.
My husband got one of the best photos of Bigfoot I've ever seen in the same area.
And I've got 45 minutes. Ed was with me the night I got it. It was actually, we were camping in a hurricane.
Yeah.
And
Hurricane Matthew.
Yeah, Hurricane Matthew. So I nicknamed the Bigfoot that's in the film Matthew, but he just leans up against a tree and watched us. I got him on film for 45 minutes.
Oh,
now
how long had you known that group before you got them on film?
Maybe a year. We got a game cam picture of the one I call Matthew. We got one on just to see. It's a 3-series game camera shot, but I've got him when he was a baby on his mama's hip. His mama's only 4'11". Really
stocky,
short, real short and stocky.
Stocky, yeah.
But the dad to him, which I think he's gone. I haven't seen him or seen any sign of him for a number of years. He looked just exactly like Chewbacca.
Oh.
But all of them look a little different. They're not, there's one down there that looks calico. Ed got that on film. I think I shared that with Victoria. I showed it to her. Ed got that with an Nikon camera in the daytime. Back in October, after I had the daytime experience, we went back. I think it was the next weekend, and I took Ed with me, and we got what it looks. It looks similar to a cat or a dog in the face, but it's kind of calico looking. But that was, we can go back to that same spot and get repeated action.
Yeah, we just hike into the woods and go off trail and sit and just take pictures of the surrounding area and review the photos afterwards. Didn't see anything while we were sitting there. We just snapping pictures and going back afterwards and scanning through the photos to see what we can see. So it's we're not calling them. We're not out there doing tree knocks. We're not out there doing whoops or any of that stuff. I mean, that stuff I used to do 15 years ago when we went on the expeditions. That's the stuff they kind of introduce you to during the expedition. But with David, we just go in the woods and just act like we're not out there looking for anything. We're just out there being in the woods.
All right. So you've been doing this, Ed, for 15 years?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts coming into it, and what are your thoughts now? And have you seen anything with your naked eye so
I,
far?
I, I have. I came in very skeptical. It was a person at work who was part of the BFRO invited me to an expedition in South Carolina. I went down to the expedition. He actually didn't lead it. He quit, and we subbed in a new guy that led the expedition and introduced us to a bunch of different people and a bunch of different techniques that was popular back then. And I haven't had a Class A experience of my own. I've heard wood knock at 2 o'clock in the morning and in the middle of February at 19 degrees outside when David and I were the only people in the woods. I've had a orb circle me in a campground. That I couldn't see it, but I had someone across the hill looking at me and walking, talking to me on a walkie-talkie, and I was chasing it, and it would run out in front of me and zipped away. But we found a very large handprint on one of the pit toilets out in the campground. That it was like fingers that were, what is Dave? What do they measure? 8-9 inches?
Yeah.
11-inch across handprint.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah,
Wow.
I saw that firsthand, and that was a very interesting handprint. And so that's my background of, I've been in the woods my whole life hunting and fishing, and I'm still go out with David to see if we can find anything. And I've been out one time when we got a video of a transparent. I heard a new term last week called the glimmer man or the shimmer man. Dave, did you watch that podcast?
Yeah, that was on Jessica's. I've seen part of it. I had forgotten all about that, actually. Yeah, that was with David Moser.
Yep, I'm walking right beside David, and we're walking down the fire trail, and we didn't notice anything real time. We had to go back and review the video afterwards, and that's when it was found. And we went out and did recreations and measurements and try to approach it very scientifically to figure out what we can find out about that transparent bipedal 7-foot tall creature in the woods.
Yeah,
I heard it. I heard it, but I didn't see it.
Okay. Have you ever thought about the hair being able to refract light? Have you ever thought of that? Or does that fit into anything you've seen?
That doesn't fit with anything I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the what I called it that it blurred out of my vision. I could tell something was running through the woods. All the branches were moving. But when I got up to get behind it, I could only see the soles of his feet coming up.
Oh, so you saw the feet?
Yeah, I saw just the soles where there was no hair. So I thought back then that their hair was refracting the light somehow. That's just my, I'm not saying anything, that's just my thought. Now,
that's possible.
And I saw a little juvenile laying down behind a rock, and all I could see was the eyes, 2 black little dots above the rock, and I couldn't figure it out. And once you look at it for a few seconds, it turned around and took off on all 4s, and you could see that same blurred out thing. I don't know.
Can I get a question in? Margaret's been very patient. She says, what kind of tech are you using, Dave?
We use digital night vision, FLIR. We've used everything that we can afford.
Yeah, I have the ATN Blaze, and I have a couple of different night vision devices. And we have people that leave microphones out in the woods trying to record, and we go back and review audio just to see what we hear. And we use regular cameras during the daytime. Dave, you have a full spectrum video camera?
Yeah, I've got use full spectrum. I try everything, and I've learned and I've experienced some stuff. Some of it I won't go into public. but this stuff, some of it can be seen with thermal. You look out there with your naked eye, you can't see it at all. Just like the figure that run past us, the translucent one, we were using thermal that night. I heard it run, but it's actually was moving so fast that the thermal could not lock onto the subject. It's just translucent when you're seeing it, but it's moving at a high
Like
rate
a
of speed.
predator.
Yeah, and looking at the body of it, is from what I see, its head and shoulders are a whole lot bigger than the lower part of it. I don't know, kind of like predator.
Had long arms and big fists.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I talked to a woman in this area who had them in her backyard. She said she used to go out at night and she could see the branch bending in a tree, but nothing was in the tree. And then one day she saw it walking in the daytime, and she described it as, the heat coming off the road. That just a wavy figure or like a mirage walking by. And I asked her if she saw eyes or any noise, smell, or anything, and she said no. But she's had a couple other incidents out there where she claims she had monkeys in the trees snapping branches off and throwing them at her. But she doesn't know whatever it was that walked by her in the middle of the day. So, yeah, I mean, I know these things do go on, and they go on all over. I get these reports everywhere. But
you hear more and more about it nowadays. Back when I first started, you never heard about this stuff. It's like, for me personally, it only started after 2012. And ever since 2012, it's just been getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And I've got hundreds of hours behind the eyepiece of a night vision device or a thermal imager, and never seen anything out of the ordinary other than Bigfoot. But this new stuff, it seems now, the more I look for Bigfoot, the more this weird stuff keeps popping up in front of me. And I'm not looking for it. It's just there.
Yeah, and you're open to it too. So
I know it's there. I mean, I've experienced enough of it now to say, hey, I know what's out there. You can't fool me. I know what to look for and stuff.
Before we go into the high strangeness, Ed, you actually had some work before you come to North Carolina and Pennsylvania. You were out researching, correct?
No, I started when I moved after moving to North Carolina. But I've gone to the expeditions in Ohio with the BFRO with a couple of the guys out there in Ohio and West Virginia, and did a lot of research. I researched the human eye and the wavelengths it can see, and I've researched my game trail cameras that you can actually hear the pictures. There's a whirring sound before, because I was wondering why you're not getting anything on the game trail cameras, and it's you can see the flash, from the IR on the less expensive game trail cameras, and you can hear the whir before the picture is taken, and you up your game with your game trail cameras, but the technology is getting more advanced, and so I've done a lot of the research, but nothing until I came to North Carolina.
You said you could hear audio before the photos were taken?
Yeah, you can hear the camera winding up to take the picture, and it's very interesting. I brought them indoors so I could have a controlled environment and tested the cameras that way, and so I'm not surprised that things can hear it or see the actual IR flash. And I've spent a little bit more money on a more advanced and a higher IR frequency.
Okay. That would go. I'm sorry, Don. Just let me ask a quick question. That would go back to Margaret's question. What's the best camera you use to capture that IR doesn't seem to interfere with it? Or
right now I'm using some Moultrie cameras. I have some Moultrie with the cellular technology, so it just sends me the pictures.
Okay.
Have you ever? Oh, sorry. Have you ever had any cameras removed from the trees, or any of your equipment taken off, buried, or anything?
I have had some cameras gone missing out on some power lines down in Georgia and South Carolina.
Power lines.
Yeah, they were around here. They would scream at my cameras at night. They'd wait for me to go outside, and then they would get by the cameras and scream these high-pitched screams. And I would walk right out and remove it and take it in the house. I knew what they were telling me. That was another one of the reasons I stopped researching in this area, just by things they were doing. So, have you had some, Dave? Had some equipment removed or buried or destroyed?
I've had back in the film days when you used the film cameras, you could hear the film advance on the game camera. And they would sit there, you'd go to get your camera, and it would be just blank pictures of the woods, but they would have marks all over the front of the camera where they sit there and threw rocks. And sometimes you'd catch a stick or something coming at the camera.
Right.
But they would throw stuff at the camera, and you'd get marks all over the front of the camera. And then I think I shared it on Victoria's show a few back of the Lizard Man. I got one on an IR camera in my backyard, and it's crossing a fence, and this thing looks just like a humanoid reptilian with a velociraptor head. It's got great big huge claws, 4 fingers, and it's huge. It actually pushed the top of the fence down, but it's probably in a 12 foot in size. It's huge. But that camera, just prior to that camera taking that picture, I got 2, looks like portals opening up in front of the camera, and then the Lizard Man shot was taken. But ever since that camera took that shot, it has not, after I was able to retrieve the SD card out of it, but that camera does not function anymore. That's a brand new camera.
When you're picking,
go ahead, Vic.
When you're starting to get into the weirdness, I was speaking with Fred Roll last night, and he was talking about the thinning of the veil. Do you guys think there's a thinning of the veil out there? Just a general conversation, and we can just take it from there and let you guys roll with your experiences.
You mean a veil between dimensions?
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
It's an interesting topic. Dave has more opinion on it. He's introducing me to those ideas.
Quick question.
Me personally, yes, I think it's happening, and for whatever reason, I don't know. I got a good guess, but I don't know. I know the weirdness is getting more frequent. I see more alien, and I get it on film, more alien or other, which I don't think they're alien. I think they're demonic. And that's the feeling I get when they're around. I get a really weirded out feeling. But something's changing, and they're being revealed more and more and more and more.
Do you think it's the magnetic shield around the Earth weakening? We've lost almost 30% of our shield in like 20 years.
I don't think so. I think they're beyond that. They're more. I think their capabilities are out there deeper. They're able to manipulate the time and from one realm to the next. They're able to step into it and out of it. And that goes with some of the Bigfoot experiences I've had. And this has happened to me a number of times. You're out in the dark woods. I mean, it's pitch black out there. Nobody's got a headlamp on. You're just sitting there listening, and you see a flash go off in the woods. It's usually about 30 yards away from you. but it's always behind a tree or a bush. You can't never see the source of the flash. And then all of a sudden you start having what we call Bigfoot activity all around us. And then, then it just shuts down. Like it had no place to run, but it's just like they're in and out whenever they want to.
Right. We had a question from Dog. I think he was wondering if you would think the reptiles would hurt you. Is that the question?
I think he's asking, do you think Bigfoot would hurt people? And that's a question that goes out to both of you. Then I have a comment from PJ.
Me personally, I've never felt in danger. Well, except for my very first experience, I didn't think I'd ever come out of the woods after that one, over that one. But as I've learned, I think a lot of that was fear, having it up close and personal, not with just one. There was 3 or 4 of them around us, and then, but as I've learned what they do, why they're doing it, and how they do it, I've never felt threatened in the woods by Bigfoot. But when this other stuff shows up, a lot of times I get a gut feeling I need to get out or I need to leave. I get a bad feeling with it, like pure evil.
Huh.
But I don't get that with Bigfoot.
I noticed that too. When you first have your sighting, they want you out of the woods, so they get a little aggressive or a little loud. But after they get to know who you are and you're not going to bother them or hurt them, it lightens up a little bit. And I don't feel any threat from the ones around here.
I think they're different. I think different than you. I think there's some that'll take your head off and have you for a Scooby snack. But I also respect the fact that you don't have aggressive ones on your property. So
right, I think it has to do with the person, because I have 2 friends that they do not like. They don't want them in the woods, and they've actually gone to the house of one of them and wouldn't even let the guy camp out in the backyard. And unfortunately, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but they both have mental issues. So, one's a paranoid schizophrenic and the other one's close to it. I don't know if they can see that. I always thought it like, because I know some people, I bring them to my area and we have to wait before we go up on the hill. I wait for them to come down. And if they give a loud vocalization, usually an owl, we don't go up. But if they just come down and give a little moan, then I'll bring them up.
Ed, do you have an answer to that question?
I've never been in the woods and felt threatened by anything. So as my experience, no. I've been in the woods, where Dave and Johnny went down there in Cumnock. That was spooky. I've been in the woods where some creepy and some spooky, but nothing threatening to me yet.
PJ Arkansas says we've had a stick put in front of our camera. It set it off, and the next picture was completely white. Does that ring a bell, Ed?
No, not to me.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
Yeah, it sounds like something they do. Like he was saying, they throw sticks and rocks at the camera. I have them come at my recorder, not my cameras. They don't go near the cameras.
Dog, did you mean when you asked that question, were you talking about Bigfoot hurting people or the reptilians? I think I said I thought you were talking about Bigfoot. So Dave, Ed, let's get some of your adventures out there. What's the one thing that sticks out that you guys want to put out there and have a conversation about?
Ed, were you with us on the trying to use a word place that without giving away the location? Down in South Carolina, where I had the one scream at me in the river.
I wasn't with you that time, but I've been there to that same place several times with Moser, and yeah, I know the place you're talking about, but I wasn't there with that one. And then that's the one where you had the beaver tail slap in the water or something that sounded like that.
No, this one actually screamed at us. It was out in the river, and where I had gotten wet, it was almost the same thermal signature as the water itself. So it was hard to pick him up. But at the same time, we had the platform we were standing on. We had one underneath us.
Yeah.
And it threw a big rock, hit the side of it. And Don Tart, he was there. He was laughing with us. He said, "You better move away from the edge. He's going to drag you in." And me and the other guy that was there, we get to joking out there with each other sometimes. And we backed up a couple steps. And as soon as we backed up, the one that was underneath us took off running in the river. You could hear it going through the river. So I run to the edge and tried to see it with the thermal, get it on film. And all I caught was just a glimpse of its back as it went around some brush that was growing out over the river. But then that one actually showed up 30 minutes later and stuck its head out of the brush. And I finally got a thermal picture of it. But that one hissed like an iguana, but real loud. That's probably one of the weirdest experience I've had out there.
Yeah, that's an interesting place down there, Dave. We had Dave Moser had audio of something coming up and slapping his tent and growling at him. I took a ladder tree stand and put him up in the swamp behind there, and got some wild hog, some wild turkey. Although it's seemingly out and open, behind there is really, really rugged wilderness. A lot of wildlife there.
Mm-hmm. Do both you guys carry a gun? If you do you show it?
I personally don't carry one. I carry a knife.
Yeah, I don't carry a gun. I carry a knife as well.
Okay.
Y'all bigger people than me, because I always have my pew pew. Anyway, moving on.
I don't want to be out there. I feel like if it's gonna get you, it's gonna get you. A gun's not gonna help. At least with a knife, as he's dragging me through the woods, I can start cutting his Achilles tendon, and I can start working on him a little bit.
Right, his big toe.
That's funny because I have a sword I carry sometimes because it's not going to get jammed. It's not going to run out of bullets. But coy wolves and wolves are up here. And there's some mountain lions. But yeah, I would. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
I usually have a walking stick that's hickory that is like a staff, and I could do just as much damage with that as I could a gun.
Right.
Leonard, I got you, buddy. I have seen what people do to each other. No way in hell the sister will be out there in the middle of God's country not having a pew pew. I'm sorry if that diminishes my experience. That's fine, and maybe it won't stop them. But the sister, if she goes out, she's going out with her boots on.
Now I'll carry a pew pew down the street, but in the woods,
Ed gets it.
I always hide behind Ed anyway.
Yeah, who runs faster?
Yeah, I know Ed's got two bad knees.
Look, the sister's 53 years old. She ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. No. I'm sorry. I think there's good experiences and bad experiences. You're lucky that you're not. So I understand. I'm just no.
Right.
If y'all find me, my gut's going to be empty and my pets are going to be wet. That's all I got to say about it.
I know that's why David takes me in the woods, because I run slower than him. I don't run. I'm a lot slower than he is.
Right. So, what's your most interesting night out there, Ed?
Let's see. I think when David and I were out there all by ourselves, and we had it was in February. It was like 19 degrees, and we're just sitting out by a campfire, and we had a.
You can say it.
There's my son-in-law cracking on me about running slow, and
I thought you had a little memory of that night. You didn't want to say anything.
No, we had the big wood knock, and Dave looked at me and said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yep."
Right.
It was real interesting. Really loud, louder than you would imagine.
Right. Do you think it was an actual wood knock or a mouth pop or a hand slap or?
Well, it was sounded like a wood knock.
Yeah, I recorded something that really in the beginning sounded like a mouth pop, and the more I kept listening to it, I'm going, well, that could be wood too. I wasn't sure. Have you heard many vocals, Ed?
Not me. No, I've still waiting to hear them up front, up close.
Yeah.
And but we'll get there.
Oh yeah. So Dave, what's the most common vocal you hear out there from these creatures?
Whoops.
Whoops. Ever hear the owls?
I've heard them try to mimic them.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of mimicking. I'll tell a funny story. This goes back to probably 2008, maybe 7. We were out in a research area, and one of the guys we're researching with was Don Tart, and we were trying out all kind of different techniques to give us an early warning. Trying every trick in the book to figure out if we could get an early warning. We run strings and stuff through the woods, and we tried it all. But he picked up these garden frogs that had a photo sensor on them, and when you walk past them, they would ribbit. And it had this real funny mechanical ribbit. And this particular night, it was, I don't know, it's probably 20 degrees. And it was so cold that it was messing up the sensor for this garden frog. So it just kept ribbiting. We couldn't shut it up. So we just got tired of it, took the batteries out, and throwed them in the trunk of his car, and we went back to camp. And about an hour later, out in the woods, about 20 yards away, you hear that ribbit, that mechanical ribbit.
Right.
And they were mimicking the sound of the frogs, those mechanical frogs.
Right. So they were mimicking what they heard.
Yeah. And
yeah, they're so intelligent, these things. I left apples for them one night, and I just wrapped the ground, or on a rock with my stick, just to let them know what they were there and where I was. And later that night, they came up there, and they took something and wrapped the exact number of times I did. And I did it fast, like I couldn't have counted it. And I kept going back with the recorder, listening, going, wow, it's the exact same number of times I did it. Their mimicking skills are incredible.
Yep. Now I've had
Oh, go ahead.
Back during the days when I still done wood knocks, I've done wood knocks, but get a reply with rock clacks.
Oh, okay.
And we've heard an awful lot of coyote howls. Lots of coyotes.
Do they ever do anything different with it, like at the end of the howl, or does it sound different than a coyote? Sort of like a coyote, but they add like maybe a hoot at the end or anything like that?
The ones I've heard, most of the time, they'll the Bigfoot will howl, and you can tell it's deeper. It's got more power to it, and at the end, it may travel off differently than a coyote. But then the coyotes will kick in, and they'll start howling in response. They'll yipping and doing the coyotes calls in response to the Bigfoot howl. But then sometimes you'll get the coyotes will do their normal yipping and yapping, and they're going on, and then you get this big, huge howl that just drowns out what they were doing.
And it starts out in the background.
Yep.
Right. Then it just stopped abruptly?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
G-Bro has a question. Kind of like that name. Has anyone ever heard single notes like a pipe organ? I was on a fly fishing trip up in Canada, and I heard a pipe organ notes on the lake with no cabins. 6 of us heard it.
I've never heard that.
No, I've heard the bird whistles. what sounds like a bird, but it's, it's not. That happened in West Virginia. As they followed us out of the woods back to base camp, they were constantly whistling back and forth to each other, but they were in very close proximity to us. So
PJ says I was playing the flute, and then something started mimicking the flute. She has that recorded, and I also have Blue-Eyed Northern, Miss Louisiana. I've recorded them mimicking the rhythm of the local road noise on my camping awning. That's pretty interesting. Does that ring a bell with you guys? I know South
No.
Mountain, when you want to come to vocals, the best vocal I ever heard. And I haven't heard a lot of vocals. Best
I
vocal
guess.
I ever heard. Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the only the noises I hear them doing up here are the noises that you hear at night. The loons, the cows, the owls, the coyotes. I've never heard them do any vehicles or anything like that. Any other sounds that I know of, anyway.
now I did do an investigation here in North Carolina. I can't say who or where, but we did get a recording, or the witness got a recording, and it's a very credible witness. And it's asking her to come back outside in a human voice, but it's very deep and guttural, but it's asking her to come back outside.
Wow. Yeah, I've recorded a little girl calling for help at like 1 a.m. in the middle of the woods, and there wasn't anyone missing or anything, but it happened 2 or 3 times. I think it happened twice. Just a little girl's voice saying help. Kind of freaked me out. And then someone was trying to tell me or trying to convince me that it could have been something else.
Yeah, that could have been demonic.
Right. Yeah. That's what he was telling me, because he knows people who have recorded that same thing before, and they swear it was something other. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm open to everything, but I'm a see it to believe it kind of person. I'm open to everything. I just have to see it to really believe it, and then understand it.
Katie G says, Miss V, I believe there's a good presence in South Mountain and its surrounding areas. Katie G, the best vocal I ever heard come from South Mountain, and it started out with the coyotes. Started out as a howl, and then it went into this mumble, and then it went to like it was clearing its throat, and it was the best vocal I ever heard. And I've told this before, but I looked at my husband. I said, please tell me you got it on video or audio. And he was like, yeah, I think I did. And he looked down, didn't have a recorder going. Yeah. Tammy wants to know, do you think they do that to lure people out, the vocals?
I don't think so. I don't. I think it's because I think it has something to do with them communicating. It's just the way they communicate. They try to hide in the sounds of the night. That's just my thought.
Okay. Ed, I'll give this one to you because you're being really quiet over there. Lavon wants to know if you've ever heard any creepy clicking sounds.
I haven't heard any clicking.
All right. Well, you need to come off with a story because you cannot sit in that corner and be quiet, sir. So just come off with something.
Well, I just noticed that Trish joined the chat, so Dave better be on his good behavior since Trish is watching him now.
Yes. She had to call me and ask me what the new name of the podcast was because we switched it up.
Yeah, so I noticed that too. I've seen a couple of the podcasts when David was on before, and I don't see Johnny on here. Is Johnny hiding from us?
Me, Doc, Johnny.
Johnny
Jackson.
Jackson.
Johnny Jackson.
I have no idea. I don't even think he's in the house right now. I don't know where he's at. Anyway, moving on. So
okay. Oh, I was gonna say I have heard that clicking. I've recorded that clicking.
Don Tart just joined. He's talking about Don. He's asking what county in Maine do you have most activity?
Waldo. Myself,
Um,
I have other encounters that I look into, and it's really everywhere. But I know Waldo pretty well.
Well, I don't know why Don is on, because Don could put the remote viewing twist on this conversation. He's so naughty.
Yeah, he could.
He's just whatever, Don.
So,
He's in his cabin in the middle of the woods.
Hey, you want to try to get him on here? We can add
Go
him
ahead,
in.
send him a link and put old boy on here.
Send him a link.
I don't have his email. He's not going to come off of it.
I have a reptilian question there, though. Do you think these are very intelligent, these creatures? The reptilians there, Dave?
Me personally, I think they're demons. So they've probably got a higher intelligence than we do. So.
Oh, okay. You think they take shape and take form?
I'm not sure about that. I know they can appear with your natural eye, or they can stay hidden and only thermal picks them up. And then there's other times that only night vision will pick them up. So they're able to control how you see them. And I've experienced it with night vision, natural vision, and thermal. I've experienced some stuff that's really weird.
Okay. Do they make any sound?
No, I haven't heard. Other than the 2-hour footage that I have, just before I started filming them, we had rocks thrown at us, just like we would with Bigfoot. But that's what showed up. We never seen a Bigfoot that night or had any other signs of a Bigfoot. But the night that we filmed a little 30-inch tall
right,
reptilian-looking dudes, we were having rocks thrown at us.
Yeah. Do you think they're aquatic, or are they always on land?
The Bigfoot, I've experienced them in the water as well as land. The reptilian stuff's always been on dry land.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always wondered about that. I've heard stories about the reptilian there, and they were always on land. I just had never heard about one on water, but then I've heard about their footprints, and sometimes they have a webbed foot. So I really wondered if they had gone, through the water. I don't know.
Yeah, I think most of the time we're in the woods. We're not in the water. Most of the times we're out there. So that's where we would see them, is in the woods on dry land.
But do you have water around all your Bigfoot encounters or sightings? Okay.
Yep.
No. What about the UFO? I mean, UFO, the aliens you see. What do they resemble, or what do they look like?
The ones that the scene Ed was talking about, where we went and just sit down in my area. The weekend prior to that, I did see them with my eyes when I took the pictures. And then the following weekend, it was just me and him. We didn't actually see anything other than a little bit of movement. But I've seen them. They look like a lot of the ones I see look like a gray, what we would describe as a gray.
Oh, okay.
Or the mantis type with the kind of a triangle looking face with the big eyes.
Right. And you think they're together?
Oh, yeah. They
really?
are working together.
Oh, any UFO sightings in that area other than orbs?
I've seen the orbs. I've seen UFOs. I was there. This goes back, I don't know, 2014, 2015 time frame. We were sitting there in base camp one night, and I was just staring up at the sky, waiting on for something to happen. I always look for satellites and stuff, and I seen these satellites come into the triangle area, And when it got to the center of that triangle, it just exploded in light. And that happened 3 different times. And it kind of bothered me. That was like one of the very first UFO-y type things to happen to me in the field. And I made a report to MUFON. And, the investigator called me back. And, I told her, I said, look, I was out looking for Bigfoot and I seen a UFO. Ha. So I told her, I was a field investigator with BFRO, and we were out doing a Bigfoot investigation, and this happened. And she shared with me the same night, 10 miles down the road, which would be, we were still looking at the same star field, even 10 miles apart. There was another gentleman that night that seen the exact same thing I did, but he seen the 3 stars come together to form the triangle.
Huh.
So,
that's
the triangle.
That's weird. Huh? I saw
a
little blinking light directly above me. I was doing the same thing, just stargazing, looking into the sky. And I saw a little tiny blinking light directly above me that was like moving around like in a figure 8 type thing. So I had my strobe light, a pretty bright flashlight strobe, and I pointed it at it and it disappeared. So I kept looking for it to reappear. And in the northeast, something caught my eye, and it was 3 points of light in a triangle getting brighter and brighter. And then when they stopped getting brighter, right in the middle, another tiny point of light started, and that thing got brighter and brighter until it was the brightest thing up there. And it just went poof, like it blew, and then dropped right through the triangle and dropped out of the sky. And then the other 3 just faded away. It's interesting. You kind of had the opposite thing happen. They came into the middle and blew. These formed the triangle and then blew in the middle. Yep. I thought there was some meaning behind it. I thought about that for the longest time. After I called my buddy and talked to him on the phone because I thought I was about to be abducted.
Now Don Tart, I think he's in the chat.
Yeah, he's there.
Him and his son had an experience down close to South Mountain. And his son took a green laser and shined it up at this orb in the sky, and a beam of light come down and it illuminated this whole campsite. And the campers next door to them walked over and asked them what was going on, and Don told them they were making a movie.
I love Don. He's ignoring me on the on Facebook chat right now, so I can't get his email. And what's strangest experience you've had out there?
Well, David and I were in Alabama at an undisclosed location, and it had been raining, and we were sitting in my truck, and we were facing east, and we saw the sun, but it was in the afternoon. What looked like the sun. It illuminated the whole horizon, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, and it was an eerie light too. It wasn't it was a glow. It was a glowing light, and that was pretty strange for me.
How do you feel about the UFOs and the strangeness that goes around with the Bigfoot?
I first heard, I was in a seminar that Alex the Midnight Walker put on in North Georgia mountains, and I saw Ron Morehouse and Lee were up there presenting what they called the X Factor, and it was talking about Ron Morehouse, who's the guy that did the Sierra Sounds, the recordings out there, and he said what he didn't tell anyone. Moorhead, yes. What he didn't tell, Morehouse is the guy that does remote viewing, right?
Yeah.
What he didn't tell anyone was, the recording he had, there was a bunch of orbs chasing him around too. So this, I was introduced to that X Factor a long time ago. So it's something I'm very interested in seeing for myself.
Have you had a lot of? You strike me as a flesh and blood kind of person. Is that correct?
Yeah, I want to see it in the flesh. I want to, I wouldn't mind bumping into one in the woods.
What? Listen, what got you into
Yeah, be
At
careful what you wish
point?
for.
Yeah.
I'll be
At what-
behind him.
Yeah.
You-
Okay. With your
At
knife.
at what point in your life did you say this is what got your interest sparked? Was it an encounter, an experience, lore? Listen, I need to pick your brain. You're sitting there and you're just like the quiet school kid that's scared he's going to get his hand slapped or something.
I'm not worried about that. It's just, it was people at work talked me into going out, and I needed something to do, so I said, okay, let's go. And I've been hooked on it ever since. Just going out in the woods, it's the people that I go out with. If I hadn't met up with Don Tard or Dave Moser or Dave Pardue, I probably wouldn't still be doing it. But I like hanging out with these guys out in the woods, and they've taught me some things, and it's a good time out there, and it's like I said, no partying going on, or we're
Good people.
no what?
Good
Good
people.
people.
Yeah, good people.
Good
I thought you
people.
said dead people. I said what?
Yeah, well, they're probably out there too. You just they call them Indian mounds or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Now, when Ed, what was did you ever meet anyone before you moved to North Carolina that had an experience or had an encounter?
my brother lived in Ohio, and he's had some what he calls unexplainable experiences. And where he lived in Ohio was where Matt Moneymaker was getting his start. When you look at the information that Matt Moneymaker talks about, and my brother, he hunts a whole lot more than I do, so he's out in the woods a whole lot more than I am, and I mean that's his life, and he's seen some things and heard some things out there in eastern Ohio, and I took him out on that expedition with me that I went to on Salt Fork, and he said, okay, now I know what it was. So up until that point, he had no idea what he had heard, but when we were listening to a presentation of the audio sounds, a fellow by the name of Monongahela and all of his recordings, and my brother says, yep, I know now what we were hearing in Ohio. So yeah, that's my brother, had some stuff go on for him.
David,
Right.
can you educate Selena what happens when BFR comes to your area? I told her not to do it. Sorry I interrupted you, Ed, but I need I need her to hear it firsthand.
Just be careful with them. The local investigators are usually pretty good. I don't want to say too much. Hook up with some of the local people. BFRO has a tendency to look for financial gain on what they do. That's the reason I left in 2014. I didn't like the way they done things.
Yeah, I've only heard.
What area is she in?
She's in Arkansas. Is it Arkansas or Alabama, Selena?
I got people that would come see
Alabama.
her. Just give me her information. I got people that would go investigate for her area. But
Okay.
They will keep it low key if she wants it, or they'll put it out there if she wants to. But
the thing about that, you never have privacy. They ruined your national forest for a long time, and they ruined your research area. Can you go in back? Because Ed, that affected you too, didn't it?
Yeah, that was with the TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I begged Matt Moneymaker not to disclose the exact location. I said, you can say you are all you want to. I said, but please don't identify the exact location where we were doing our research. And, that episode come out, and the very first thing they said was, here, this is where it's at. And
Mike Green never forgave him for that.
Yeah, Mike Green was a friend of mine. That was like the best spot in the whole United States, as far as I'm concerned. And I've got other people that can vouch for me. But now you go down there, 2 weeks after that episode aired, you'd walk out in the woods and it was peanut butter jars, it was feminine products hanging from trees, it was CDs. There's hundreds of people. Victoria and Ed both can tell you that it's no longer a secret, and they've put so much pressure on the Bigfoot that they've moved out of the area basically. There's a 10% chance that you may have an encounter there, but prior to that TV show, it was a 95% chance that you would have an encounter there, and not just a fleeting glimpse, or that we had them coming up into camp, to the edge of camp. Don Tart's in the chat, he can tell you. We had some of the best encounters that anyone would ever hope for, and repeatedly every time we went. And now it's, you go there, it's hit or miss. You have to hike in. I've got areas that I know and I've been going to for the last 20 years that I can go to and reliably have an encounter. One of those places is where I took Ed. How many people can walk out into the woods, go to a certain spot and sit down, and you get a picture in the broad daylight? But I know where to go find them. And
they turned it into a Bigfoot tourist location.
Yeah, circus.
It's ruined.
Circus.
But Uwharrie's not the only place in North Carolina. I got other places I can go and have an experience, but that'll never be put into the public. It's
Trish,
I won't get burned twice.
Trish, the beautiful girlfriend of David, said there was we gave you a thumbs up, and it just says some cool stuff about you, Trish, and you missed it because I changed the name of my podcast. Trish said there was always some experience in Uwharrie, and you were right. There was always something, but it turned into a circus. And David, you and Ed had put in so much research. There's Johnny Meadock. You guys had put in so much research there, so much time there. How long did it? And that's what happens when you give your research away. And I'm not saying BFRO would give your area away, but I'm just saying you really have to watch bringing people in your area. But how long did it take you to find them again? Because it took a long time for you to be able to even get some decent research or activity back in there again.
Me personally, I quit going for about 4 years. And then when I started going back, I didn't even go to that area. I went to another area that I know they're at. And, we were having repeatedly, they're there all the time. I know where to go find them. But, it wasn't the most comfortable spot for me to go to. It wasn't as convenient, but I would go there. Don's been there. Ed's been there. And, it's not as reliable, but you have to go. It's just an inconvenience to, instead of stepping out of your truck and having an experience, you got to hike in 2 hours. It's different, but they know who I am. And when I go there, they just seem to know I'm in the woods. I don't know if it's by my smell or what, but I've been interacting with them for so long. I fed them for years, and they show up. I know I'm not going to hurt them.
Right.
Ed, what did you lose when all of that happened?
Well, when Dave quit going, I didn't go as much either when he wasn't going. So it was, I was glad he got back into it and called me up and said, let's go. And, I went and we were there. So, there was a slow period for a long time.
Yeah. Ed was with me tonight. That was probably one of the first times I went back. And I got 45 minutes of night vision video of Matthew leaning up against a tree watching us. But Ed was with us that night.
Yeah.
I
had a fox circling me too that night.
Yep. You had a fox circling you. I like fun. Yeah. Trish said, I was saying earlier, as a newbie, I found my first Bigfoot print in Uwharrie. You broke her in, did you, David?
That was the very first time I took her down there, and I said, well, let's just go on a little hike. And we went out, and we went up maybe 45 minutes into our hike, and she found a fresh track. They were actually harvesting frog eggs out of a mud puddle, and this print was so fresh that the pine needles, where it stepped out of the water onto the pine needles, was still wet.
Wow.
So we had to scoop them up from feeding.
I can probably guess where that was.
Yep, you probably could.
What other foods have you found that they eat?
I found deer with right below the rib cage where the liver area would be. I found that area ripped out and the liver pulled out. I found that on the
Were
side.
the ribs broken? Like they punched the ribs? I'm asking that for a question.
Yeah, it looked like something about the size of a softball. It hit the deer in the side of the ribs and just punched them out. And then it rips the liver out, but it doesn't really mess with any of the muscle tissue. It just takes the liver. I've seen deer skulls up in trees where they shouldn't be up in trees.
I saw an actual deer head in a tree, in the Y of a tree.
Yep.
Couldn't find the rest of the body, and it was a recent deer head too.
Any vegetation that they eat?
Ferns, especially in the spring times, they'll harvest the fiddleheads just like we would. All your nuts. I've seen evidence of them, and I know of other guys that seen the same evidence of them taking a rock and busting open hickory nuts. I've seen places where they took a stick and dug, looks like they're digging roots from a bulb or some plant where they've dug the plant up and left the stick, after they get digging what they're hunting, they'll just leave the stick laying in the hole.
Do you have wild garlic down there?
Yeah.
Okay. Other than vegetation and animal, any other like bones? Have you found any bones that they chew on or?
No,
Okay.
Now we found like caches of deer carcasses in one area where there shouldn't be, but there was no evidence of them eating on them, But I'm sure they did.
Right.
Squirrels chewing on bones. There's a lot of squirrels chew on the deer bones.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they up here they bury the bones after the deer kill. They'll bury all the bones and then come back later and dig them up and eat them.
Now,
I've got a bunch of bones with teeth prints in them.
Now I do know there's a story in Uwharrie when they were this goes back to the early 60s when they were just initially started to develop the Uwharrie National Forest, putting trail systems in and that type of stuff. One of the men who were helping build those trails said they found like a 10-point buck buried under the leaves. But it wasn't a bear that had done it. This was just a deer had been drug in and then buried, covered up.
Right. No predator or teeth marks in it or anything, right?
Just it was drugged to that spot, covered up in the leaves. That goes up back to the 60s, though.
Oh, okay. I saw a question about pawpaws in Maine. I don't think so because I'm not sure what a pawpaw is. I don't think they're up here.
Yeah, we got them down here.
Yeah.
And what are they?
It's a fruit that grows along the creeks and rivers. I'm not sure what the northern limit for pawpaws are, but it is a southern.
Okay. We've got plenty of blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, wild up here.
What about Bigfoot eating fermented fruit? You think they get drunk?
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, I've seen drunk grouse.
Yeah, because they do collect the apples up here that have been sitting on the ground. They don't take them out of the tree. They clean them up off the ground. And whenever I've left apples out for them, they don't take them right away. A month or so later, then they take them when they start to get soft. I don't know if they're fermented, but they seem to like them after they start to rot. And when they eat the apples, they leave the cores right there. And then they always leave an apple for me. And I had a roommate living here, and they used to leave 2. And when he moved out, they started leaving 1. Same with acorns. I leave them acorns also and beech nuts.
You sure you weren't interacting with Bobo?
Geez, I don't know now. Right now, they got me thinking about that. But I had a new group come in, and the new group that came in doesn't take anything. They don't touch anything I leave for them. The other group that was here was more interactive. This group that's here now, they don't want me out there. They let me know when I get close. They'll growl at me. So I don't know why this group moved in and the other one moved out. I'm not sure why that happened.
So
Don,
Trish
what's your thoughts on mind speak? Have you heard that term?
Yeah, I don't. I've never heard any of it. I don't know. They're quite vocal with me, so they don't have to use their minds. They just do what they do, and I hear them.
But wasn't mind speak something that was primitive to us, and they say we kind of lost it the more they say advanced. I think we kind of lose our people. But wasn't that something that we were all told that we would possess at one time back in the day?
I
Like
can't.
how we
I don't remember. I don't remember back that far.
I always associated that with infrasound. It does crazy things with your head. So I don't know. I don't know.
They've used it on me a lot, and it's weird.
The infrasound.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and even with their vocals, I got hit with a loud vocal on the side of the head, and it screwed my left eye up. I've got something hanging in my vision now, and I see white streaks on the left side whenever I move my eyes side to side. So it could have been infrasound along with the vocal, is what I thought.
David, can you go into some of your experience with infrasound?
Going all the way back to 2005 in West Virginia when I had my very first up close and personal encounter with them. I got hit by that. All three of us. It was three of us together in a group. All three of us got hit. The girl that was in the group, she basically went almost into shock. To me, you got a overwhelming feeling of dread, and coupled with the one that was screaming at us, huge rocks being thrown at us, just the whole interaction. We called it zapping. Getting zapped, I think, was the worst part of it. It makes you feel vulnerable. But then other times I've had it happen, and you just get kind of a upset stomach feeling, sick feeling. Some of the guys in our group have dropped down on their knees and thrown up. Just different. It affects everybody differently, and however they want to make it affect.
That's what I was just going to ask you, if you thought it affected everyone different. It used to get me in my gut in the early days up here. Anytime I'd walk up into the woods, I'd have to run right back to the house and go to the bathroom. And I couldn't figure it out because it was always in the same spot in the woods.
Yeah, I haven't encountered any infrasound or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a change of underwear has always been a recommended gear to put in your pack when you go out.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I'll go right in the woods if I had to. But I used to make it back to the house in time. But it was only in the beginning, and I don't know if they didn't know who I was, and they just wanted me out of there. And over time, that went away. I haven't felt it in years.
Yeah, once you build up their trust, they kind of back off from the intimidation, and it starts to become enjoyable messing with them, or they're messing with you. Becomes kind of a game, and then they lose the fear of you, and you you kind of understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, and you get to learn them. But you got to spend a lot of time with them in order to get to that point. It's not just going to happen overnight.
No, they've been watching me for 15 years before I even knew they were here.
Yep.
So Ed, have you ever found any footprints or?
No, just a handprint.
Just a handprint? Oh, okay. Any hair or any other evidence?
During my first expedition with the BFRO, Dawn took us on an investigation, and we were down along this creek, and we found what we thought was hair. It turned out to be some form of moss or something like that. So it was, it's just looked like strands of coarse hair, but it turned out to be plant material.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with Gary there about respect. That's what I try to tell a lot of people. It's about respect up there. And that's why I don't put any cameras up there anymore, because they didn't like it. So anything they don't like, I don't bother with. Now, that's just close to my area. I have other areas I go where I put cameras up. They don't know me so well. I found the group. Well, they let me know. The group that left here is about 7 or 8 miles away now. And I was just riding a bike down the street, and they let me know right where they were. I recognized the owl hoot from the big guy that was here that I saw. So it's funny how they let you know where they are, even though you might not even be looking for them. Have you guys ever experienced anything like that or ever heard of it?
Yeah. In my experience, it's usually not one. There's 2 or 3 of them, but only one will give away his position. And he'll be the vocal one. He'll be the one that makes, you'll see him, but there's usually 2 or 3 more that he's communicating with. And if you listen real careful, you'll hear a rock clack, and then you'll hear another one off to your right, and you'll hear another one off to the left. But they're communicating, they're triangulating you, but there'll be always one that seems to be the one to draw your attention to it.
Yeah, right. He's drawing you away from his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think they do. When we had a drought around here for about the past 10 years. It's starting to get better now. But what I found around here, there's small groups, family groups here and there, but they're all part of the same family. So if they need water, they'll come through the area to get to the local pond over here, and they go by the house. And that's when they vocalize like crazy. And I think it's just to keep me in the house while they go back and forth to the water. But like you said about the distracting you, I was riding down the road on a bicycle. There was no reason for him to even do that to me. I would have never even looked over there. I was just going home. And I wondered why they did that. I've had it happen other times where they don't have to make any noise at all. I'm not going into the woods. I'm going down the road, but they'll let me know where they are. That's always confused me. Although I did leave that group apples all the time. Maybe they just want apples. I don't know.
What color apples were you leaving?
The local Macintosh.
Red.
Yeah, all red apples.
Try leaving something that's not a different color apple, like a green apple.
Oh, okay.
Switch up.
What's that?
Some areas they like green, some they like red, or they might be like me. I'm colorblind, so red.
I've always tried to leave them what grows in this area.
Switch it up. They don't like bananas. At least the ones around here don't.
Yeah, I've eaten bananas up there on the hill before. They don't seem to have any interest in them.
But try a green apple.
Yeah, I will. I'll try that. They like whenever I pick mushrooms, I clean off mushrooms and let the mushrooms get a little bit bigger. And when I come back the next day, every single mushroom I cleaned off is gone. All the other ones are still there. And then one day they picked the biggest mushroom and bit right into it and left the mushroom and left me this big bite print right in there. I think they're just letting me know that, hey, these are ours. But they don't eat them. They'll just all grow and rot.
Dave, what were you and Johnny Jackson grilling down there where you heard the samurai chatter? Was it fish or bacon?
Mac sausage, I believe. It was
Passed
sausage.
on about Mac sausage. It's the best.
Yeah.
Do you think that samurai chatter is mimic or communication?
No, they were definitely communicating with each other. It was just sound like two Japanese men off in the woods just having a conversation like, what are we going to do to them next? You know, they were talking back and forth.
Were you with John? No, you weren't with Johnny that night. He got the picture of his shoulders, and you still walking off and turning around looking at him. You weren't with him.
No, but that one's got a baby on its back.
What is the area? You don't have to say it, but there is an area up there where you walk through the ferns and like an open area, and they say at night that area gets pretty creepy with the activity there. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. I don't go there. I know where it's at. I know another group goes there, so I try to stay out of there because I know them. They know me. I let them do their thing, and I kind of stay on my side and try not to interfere with each other's work. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Johnny knows where that's at.
What's the most common color down there? Sorry, Vic.
You're fine.
I've seen black with my own eyes. I've seen black. One that's what I call calico. I'm colorblind, so I don't see the same colors everybody else's does in the same way. But what I call calicos is just a match of different grays and whites and black. I'm sure there's some reds in there and stuff, but I can't see it. And then I've seen the lighter tan color.
Oh, okay. What color do you see red as, or what?
Red.
What color?
Brown,
Yeah,
brown.
It comes out brown. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's funny. I saw a red one that I guess would be what you would call calico. It had different patches of red shade on it, right down to like pine straw color, and almost up to an orangutan red. But there was patches on it, different colors. It was strange.
Yeah, this if I had to get, with my color range, it would be almost like you were looking at the forest floor of leaves. It was just so patched up, different color.
Well, let's go in to the taboo. There's dogmen in the Uwari too. There are dogmen there.
Oh yeah, what are your thoughts on dogman? Both of you.
Well, I'm in the group that I think that Bigfoot is more canine than ape. So that would, push it more to the dog man. What I've seen of them, how they act and stuff, to me it's more canine than it would be ape. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know.
Have you seen snouts?
Yeah, some of them I've seen had a longer snout. Some of them's got a flatter face. Me and Don Tart seen one come up into camp, but it had kind of a flatter face, but a really wide nose. I mean, I seen it clearly. It was 30 feet away from us. You can see his eyes shining at us. But that one didn't. The face on it was flatter, but I just seen it, straight on. I didn't get to see a profile of it. So,
okay.
Ed, what are your thoughts?
I've only been on one research event where they were looking specifically for dogman, but I haven't seen anything that that leads me to be no like a footprints or anything that would lend to a dogman.
Here's it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm more along the Bigfoot not being a dog man, but I'm open to seeing it.
I like the fact you two go out researching and you can have different opinions. That makes an excellent team. I like that. Harold Denton said, reddish brown or light and tan colored ones would blend nicely with the pine needles on the forest floor in eastern North Carolina. I heard they bed on that, but I don't. Most of the suspected nesting sites I've seen have been in briars, like little tunnels in the briars. But I've also heard they bed on that, so that's excellent observation.
Yeah,
What
I found bedding areas right on sphagnum moss. Just a huge depression in the hemlocks. I think they around here anyway, they bed down. They have several bedding areas in the same area, but I haven't found any. I've been sent pictures of like a grass igloo, all made out of grass, but the bedding areas, yeah, I always wondered about that.
The Ohio Grassman.
Yeah.
you been to
We,
South?
we have a lot of Boy Scout activity, and a lot of times you'll see them try to scouts build survival structures. So you have to be careful when you're out hiking through the woods, and it might be humans doing some of the structures or nests, if you will. So it's something you got to keep an eye out for. Look for human sign around that stuff.
Do you
Have
guys
you? Oh,
go
go
ahead?
ahead.
You guys
I
try
was
to spend as much time trying to debunk something as you would support it? I apologize, Don. I thought you gave me the floor.
no.
Yeah, we do. It's we always try to disprove it to ourselves before we even share it with the public. You know, if it's iffy, we don't even talk about it.
Yep.
We learn from it, but unless it's if we can't debunk it, then we'll tell the world about it. But if we can't, figure it out ourselves, especially stick structures and uh, different stuff, even wood knocks. Nowadays, there's so many people in the woods, Bigfoot, and you don't know if a wood knock is a Bigfoot doing it or if it's another Bigfoot group on the other side of the ridge doing it, and you're not aware of each other, and you're talking to another set of humans all night long. That's why I don't
Yeah.
do wood knocks anymore. But pictures, stuff like that, we try to go back and find the exact location and measure and when possible. But on the really, really good stuff, we try to go back the very next weekend or the next day, and sometimes and add
So,
some scientific data to what we were looking at, how far away it was from the camera face, how tall it was, in comparison. Well, one of us will sit in the same spot and take a picture or a video, and what size comparison was it to human? Different stuff. We always try to debunk it.
Which one of the two of you are the most harder on the trying to debunk stuff, or the more of the skeptic on things?
I'm certainly a skeptic on most of the stuff, but I think Dave is hard on the evidence to make sure, like you said, not going to share anything that there's doubts on.
I agree.
And then, if I find out down the road something that happened or whatever that originally I said was Bigfoot, and I found out that it wasn't, I'll go back and retract and say, hey, this wasn't Bigfoot. This was actually what it was. I'm all about the truth. If the story, you keep the storyline is the same throughout, whether it's 1 year, 6 months, 10 years. If something happened, it happened the way it happened, and you don't add to it or subtract from it. That's just the way it is.
Poncho, subscribe to your channel, David. You're not active in that a lot right now, are you?
I am, and yeah. Matt
You and
Hooper,
Matt.
he's been doing some stuff on there. I just hadn't had the time.
Thank you, Poncho. That's a good channel. All right, Don, next question, buddy.
Have you ever seen them in the trees or using the trees for a lookout or anything?
No, but I highly suspect they do. I think they spend just as much time up in the trees as as they do on the ground. Just like
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
travel
say,
on all fours.
right,
They travel on all fours just as much as they do walk upright too. So
right. Yeah, I find they use trees a lot in the wintertime. And they don't go up high above the snow, and they can just bounce trunk to trunk. I found debris in the line, but when we were talking before about the pine straw, the pine color, um, I remember going up the hill every day, looking at the tallest tree up on the hill and seeing a dead pine branch hanging down. And then going up one day and no branch and thinking that it had fallen off. And then a few weeks later, I go back up and there's the branch there again. So I think I was seeing one of these creatures up on the hill, and it looked like a dead pine branch hanging down.
That would go back
And
to
that,
good camouflage.
yes, yes,
If you think about it, Dave, a lot of the places where we have interesting sites is alongside creek beds or ravines. Nice escape route.
yep.
yeah, they can get right in the water, geez, up to their neck, and they can hide very well.
And for those that don't know, that's joined the chat during the show, Don is from Maine. And when he found out Ed and David was coming on, he's really fascinated, with how they research in North Carolina. So he's really taking in a lot, and they're asking questions. So Don is from Maine. The rest of us are from North Carolina. So Don, you're just an orphan. But do you guys have any questions for Don about Maine activity or?
Yeah, I started
You
in
guys are
Southeast
allowed.
Mass. I was going to say I started in Southeast Massachusetts, what they call the Bridgewater Triangle. I call the Hockomock Swamp.
You guys are
That
allowed to drill Don now.
okay.
I think for Don's area, he gets a lot more snow than we do, and I think that the way they survive in the northern part of the country versus the southern part is it's like night and day, and the difference in the way they do things and what they eat, how they survive their winter. They probably survive more on deer and meat in the wintertime up there, where they still have a vegetation, some variety of vegetation down here, especially the further south you go.
Yeah, in bones. That's what they save the bones for, I think, is for the wintertime when the food gets low. And I have recorded them out on the coldest nights of the wintertime. Just out there moving around doing vocals. Yeah, they amaze me. But they can cover themselves up with snow. I found imprints of the bodies, although I think they were hunting. I think they had covered themselves up with snow and were waiting for the deer to come by. I just happened to walk up while they were doing this, and they blew out of the snow and took off, or one did, I should say. But yeah, I was I was going to ask you. I know we talked about that earlier one. You said it was short and stocky, the female. Are most of them down there very stocky and thick, or do you get the tall, slender ones much?
Both.
West Virginia, the ones we encountered up there were muscular. They were athletic.
Right.
The ones that I've been seeing around here, uh, the males seem to be real big, but the females are more barrel shaped. They're shorter. Now there is an area down on Deep River. I had one come up on me there while I was laying down in my truck and knocked on my side glass window, and we had a face to face for over a minute. And that one, my truck was 7'3" to the top of the clearance lights, and it was taller than my truck. That's the biggest one now that area there. I do carry a gun when I go there. That one spooks me.
Is there a
So
lot of hunters in that area? Sorry, Vic.
No, not really. The area we were at is actually on private land, and it's limited access. It's the roads leading into the land is all gated with keys. You know, you just don't drive in there where we were at. And
Yeah.
Ed's been there. Victoria's been there. That's
I love it.
a
You
spooky place.
you get hunters in the national forest, and let's call it a benefit of having a big hunting population is they'll open up a lot of the fire roads, so you can drive on in and get further into the national forest sometimes when it's hunting season. But you still need to take your precautions because there are people in the woods with guns and they're out shooting at things.
Right. It seems that they're more likely to show themselves to you during the day down there. I don't get a lot of daytime encounters around here, mostly nighttime. And they do whatever they can to stay stealthy out there. But everyone around here has a gun. And I think they know that. And I think that's why they will do whatever it takes. Like, we don't lose a lot of animals up here, pets. Every once in a while, someone will lose a chicken. And a chicken is the only animal I've ever heard of people losing. There's pigs, there's cattle, there's all kinds of animals around, but just the chickens. Do you guys have animals go missing? Pets, farm animals, or?
There's one area close to my research area that I'm aware of. They were losing a lot of calves, and they couldn't contribute it to coyotes. So during the calving season, they were losing a higher percentage of calves, and so that's the largest animal. I did do an investigation close to Statesville, North Carolina, where some pet goats got missing, and then they had collars on the goats with phone numbers and stuff, and then a couple months later, somebody called them and found the collars like 3 miles away on a
They will
trail.
take collars.
Yeah,
So-
that's not a coyote.
They
you know,
will take collars. I know that.
And then going back to the hair samples, I actually collected a hair sample from that sighting report. I was with the BFRO at the time, and the hair was probably 5-6 inches long. And Don Tart's in the chat; he's seen the hair, and I submitted it for analysis. And a couple months later, it come back, and Matt Moneymaker said, "Oh yeah, I got that. It was from a small primate. I mean, from a small mammal. I mean, what small mammal do we have that has 5-6 inch long hair? You know,
Right.
it was weird. So,
Right.
was it from a small mammal or was it from a squatch and they just kept it for themselves? And you know what I'm saying? I don't trust
Right.
them.
Ed, were you with David in West Virginia when
No, I didn't know him back then when he went on that trip.
David, for people that don't know, can you go into that? Because that was to me a bad experience. That was not a good experience. It got pretty dangerous that night.
Yeah, we were in an area, and I can't disclose the location. I've signed NDAs on it, but we went into the area. It was supposed to have squatch activity, and I told the two friends that were with me, I said, if they say Sasquatch is here, I'm still believing it's only on California, Oregon, right? I said, if there's a Sasquatch here, I can find it. I'm a pretty good tracker. If it's something here, I'll find something to prove to myself. And at that time, and just like now, I do all this just to satisfy myself and what I experienced going all the way back to when I was 16 years old. But we started out the very first day of the expedition. Everybody was following Matt Moneymaker, and I'm still very skeptical. I said, we're paying all this money to come on this expedition, and nothing really is going to happen till the last day, and then somebody's going to run across the trail in front of us in a monkey suit, and that's going to be our Bigfoot experience, right? And but so that next day, when everybody went right, I went left, and I do what I do. I picked up a game trail, and I just started following that game trail up the side of a mountain, and it was steep. It was very hard to get to. A deer can traverse terrain that we can't, or we can, but with a lot of difficulty. And we got about halfway up side this mountain, and there's a 14-inch track right in the smack in the middle of this deer trail. And measured it, took pictures of it with a 35 millimeter camera. That's how far this goes back. Didn't even have digital. And went on we continued on this game trail. We got up to where the mountain, come into a dry creek bed in the holler. And as soon as we made the turn, there was a power knock. And this is broad daylight. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I told my friends, let's not go no further. We're going to back out, go back the way we came, and we're going to come back here before dark. And we're going to get up in this holler and just sit back and see what happens. Well, we went to investigated a few other areas. We already had this as a good hot spot. We're going to come back that afternoon. Well, we got a little bit later start than we anticipated. And this time we walked in on the human trail. There was a human trail that ran alongside the river, and we were able to access it fairly easy. But when we got there, it already started getting dark on us. And to the point that when you looked up in the holler, it was pitch black. You could see the sunlight still touching the top of the mountain above us, but everything below was just pitch dark. And we got up in there, and we were almost at the same spot that we would have been earlier the day, but on top of the ridge. And there's a power knock, but it's maybe 20 feet away from us at most, probably closer. And we all kind of just stopped in our tracks. And before the echo of that wood knock could stop, I just started looking around, and I looked up, and you could see the top of the ridge, and I see a baseball-sized rock being thrown, and I seen it in the sunlight, and as it come down the mountain and got into the darkness, it disappeared, and it landed about 2 foot behind me. And before that rock stopped rolling, we got hit with infrasound on the right, and it was right there. The terrain, we had to be within about 10 or 12 feet from it. So it was right beside us, growling at us. And that's where the girl that was with us, she basically went into shock. And, everything I'd ever learned about a Bigfoot was they just want you to leave. Well, the way they were doing us, there was only one way out and one way in to where we come in. Well, our exit, there was one standing there audibly screaming at us. And this was just outside of range of what the flashlights we had. Back then we didn't even have nothing. We didn't even have a recorder. We just had our eyeballs and flashlights, and that was it. We were just out there for the adventure to see if we could see something, But we lit up every flashlight we had. I was finally able to get through to the girl. I had these 2 mini mag flashlights, which they're not bright at all. I had her hold both of them in one hand in between us. And I held the front of her pants up, grabbed her, and her boyfriend, he had the back end of her, and he was bringing up the rear. We had to basically kind of pick her up on her feet and walk her out as these things were screaming at us. But we finally forced them out of the way and made it back to camp. Well, we went back. The BFRO people were there. We were telling them what was happening. And they wanted to go back. I told them it's crazy. Right? But eventually we went back. It was 13 of us, and we retraced the same exact footsteps. We went back, and the same thing happened to us again, but with 13 people. And then it got, with 13, I felt a whole lot better than 3, but it was a bad night. But I didn't think I was coming out of the woods that night. They were trying to drive us deeper into the mountains instead of letting us leave, which we were trying to leave, but they didn't want us to leave. They were trying to push us, but they finally give in, and only willpower got us out of the woods that night. I think they were trying to get us to break and run, and I believe that night they would have picked out the weakest.
Yeah.
Is that where they were throwing logs at you too, Dave?
Do what?
Were they throwing logs? Is that where they were throwing logs?
After we returned with the 13, the activity kind of died down a minute, and we come to the conclusion, well, there's 13 of us here. Maybe they're too afraid to mess with 13 humans, so we decided to split the group up, and 6 of us stayed in the lower end, and I told them, I said, I'll be in the lower group. It's closest to the exit. I've had enough all I want tonight. 7 more of them decided they wanted more, and they went further up the trail, but we could see each other with night vision. When we went back, we had night vision, and we were able to. I watched one right across from me, 12 foot away, crouched down, looking at us. Some of the people in that group, they were taking apples that they were leaving out for bait, had them in the pack. They were tossing apples to it, and they'd pick those apples back up and sling them at us and hit the trees and just turn it into applesauce. And on up, I was watching the group, with night vision, when somebody's got their headlamps and stuff on, it's like daylight. And there was a log thrown out of that ravine and hit a tree, and it just exploded and just showered down on all the people. But they got within probably 3 feet of one that night. And it was just.
Oh, go ahead.
That one, the person had night vision, and I know if you use night vision in the woods, if you get real close to a tree, it'll white out. It just white outs the whole screen. And his night vision kept whiting out. But what he was doing, he was so close to the chest of this Sasquatch that was standing there that would white out his night vision. So he would just keep scanning, but he had a red headlamp on at the same time, and the girl that was standing behind him, said every time that red headlamp hit it in his face, it would just drop its head down. And as soon as the light passed, it would raise its head back up. But it had never moved. It stood there like a tree.
Huh.
That was my first real experience with Sasquatch. That's how I got initiated.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Now, Ed, you on the flesh and blood primate side of this, or what do you think these creatures are?
I think there's multiple things out there.
Different kinds. All right.
There's flesh and blood, and there's other things out there that we don't know about, that we don't understand yet.
Right. Yeah. Now, Dave, are you on the primate side of this, or flesh and blood?
They're flesh and blood. I think they lean more canine.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But there's 2 types. And I go back over my years of experience with all the different experiences I've had and encounters. There's the flesh and blood is it's nothing no more than a bear or a deer. It's just another animal in the forest. And it usually has silver eye shine. And I'd never get a real bad feeling out of them. Get scared. Yeah, I've left the woods before because of what they do, but never a really just a bad feeling. And there's this other thing out there that has red eye shine that I get a bad feeling from. You can see it you can see the eye shine with the naked eye, but you look at it with night vision and you can't see the eyes shining, but you can see the brush moving as it's coming toward. We got charged by one doing that. And, one eye's open, natural, looking at it, and you got night vision up to the other eye looking at it. You could see the eye shine rapidly coming at you. But when you're looking through it night vision, all you see is the brush parting. And it gets, 6-7 foot away from you, and it turns and goes back, and, it's eyes shining red the whole time, but you can't really put a body to it. You can't see a body to match the eyes. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
And this is something I've been putting together the last couple of years. I think a lot of the eye shine that we're seeing out in the woods, we think is Bigfoot. It's not Bigfoot. It's this other thing.
Okay. I kind of had a theory that when I would go out with a flashlight, they were not happy I had a flashlight, and I would see red eye shine. But if I went out there and I was just cutting wood and I look up into the woods, I've seen white and green. Now, if I never had tried to go in the house and get a flashlight to see if it turns red. But if something's focusing on you, I've always assumed, just my theory, that they're focusing, their pupils change, and they reflect light differently. And if they're in a better mood and they know you're not doing anything, their pupils would be open wider, I guess. I don't know. But I've seen green, white, and then I've seen red when I've had a light. But the green and white was a reflection of either a car going by or from a porch light. But I've gotten growled at, walked out of my house with a flashlight and got growled right away. So I don't use the flashlight.
Well, my experience with them is the times that I've been able to see a body shape with the eye shine, with the natural eye, or with night vision, it's always been, white eye shine. There's always been some type of light source, whether it's a campfire or a lantern or a flashlight or an IR beam to illuminate the eyes. The 45 minutes of footage I have, you can tell when he looks directly at the camera, his eyes shine because the IR is actually causing his eyes to reflect. And, but the ones that I've seen at a distance, I should be able to pick them up with thermal and I should be able to pick them up with the night vision. I can see the eye shine, and the eye shine should clearly show up. On night vision, it doesn't show up. Doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying?
Think they close their eyes? I've had that happen to me too. When I've seen them, they just close their eyes like they're invisible now.
Well, the last really good episode of Eye Shine I had, it was 3 of them all side by side looking at us, and I had Eye Shine, and I'm looking at one eye with my night vision, and I keep the other eye open. I can clearly see the eye shine, and I'm focused dead on it, but it won't show up on the FLIR. I mean the night vision.
Oh, okay.
And I've had that happen a number of times, and one of the last times I was out with Victoria, she can tell you we were there. Nothing really happened, but the dog alerted to something that was close to us, and so I automatically pointed my thermal system to that area. I picked it up on thermal. I could see a thermal signature there beside a tree, and so then once I get that on, it's on a tripod. I got it recording the whole time. I pick up my night vision and I zoom in on that area. I pinpoint it. I start snapping pictures. And, you're looking on a little 1x1 screen. It's hard to see anything. When I get home and I go to at 3:00 in the morning because it started pouring down raining on us. We left. And I get home, I start immediately downloading because I knew I captured this thing. And everything on that thermal SD card was corrupted. It didn't record anything. It didn't record any still shots or video. The night vision camera that I was using, all the still shot photos showed up. The video that I took, none of it captured. But what I did pick up is this tall mantis-shaped being standing beside a tree.
Huh. A true form.
Yeah. I mean, right. Victoria's seen the pictures. Ed's seen the pictures. I mean, it's not right. Looks like or whatever. It's there.
Right. Now, Ed, are you in this research for the long haul or till you get a sighting? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that mantis, he was wearing a uniform with an emblem on his shirt.
The what now?
Oh, the mantis was?
Wasn't that mantis one wearing a uniform with an emblem on his shirt?
No, that was the 2-hour video from the other's place. Yeah. It's got like a triangle on his chest.
Huh. Oh, I thought he was joking. I said, well, he's got a Bud Light too, probably. But that night you were with us, when Cowboy alerted, his lip was rolled up and he was showing all of his 42 teeth.
Yep.
And I mean, we could not figure it out. But I think it was the weekend prior to that when we went out with Lynn and Phil, Knucklehead Phil, we had like 3 hours of total silence. Total silence. There, and we were right up on the creek. No frogs, no crickets, no nothing. So that is a area of high strangeness there. We also have seen orbs there. But Patrick wanted to know, what part of West Virginia were you in when all of that happened?
I'm trying to remember the county. I can't give you the specific location because I signed an NDA.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
It was a state park.
Okay. Poncho said no Budweiser in this house. Okay, anyway, Ed, you've been sitting there so quiet. What's the area that you have been in that you have just had the worst feeling in? Do you follow your gut on those outings and retreat, or you just say, "Oh yeah, I'm Ed, I'm staying here, damn it."
Yeah, I'm in. But the place where Dave had the tall one slap his window in the truck, when you shine your light down at where they cut the grass, and 4 billion spiders look back at you.
Yeah, that was
That was Cumnock. But see where Cumnock spooks y'all. I love Cumnock. I love it. I weren't crazy about going on that crazy bridge. That I mean, we got halfway up the embankment to go on the bridge, and me, Lynn, Phil, Casey, and her husband, we all just went straight down that rock. We fell all over each other and hit the trees on the bottom. We're like a bunch of 3-year-olds on the playground. It weren't even funny. But yeah, I love Cumnock. But yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you, and I've been waiting for you to speak on that, sir.
Yeah. Don was talking to me. He says it's Greenbrier County, Dave, in West Virginia.
Yeah, Greenbrier.
And Lavonier wanted to know NDA with BFRO. I signed a couple of NDAs.
Yeah. There's a lot of places and things we do that we sign NDAs, and I sign it and I honor it. So
which is a good thing.
I guess with the BFRO, it would depend on the circumstances or the activity that's going on there. There would be special circumstances to that.
Yeah, and there were NDAs signed for Uwharrie, North Carolina, but it sure as hell went public. But they did it. I didn't. So that's the thing. They have control.
Right. Several years ago, I started talking about what was going on up here on another podcast, and I got a call from the state police telling me that they had just turned around a van full of guys from Connecticut coming up here to kill a Bigfoot. And I didn't give location, but I mean, they know my name. You can figure it out, but I still try to stay quiet about everything. I don't give specific locations anymore. I say my house, but they come by here, I don't know, a couple times a month they'll come here, but there's another area I have to go to find them. But yeah, you really do have to be careful because there are a lot of people out there that think they're going to get rich by killing one of these.
Well, I mean, the man's dead and gone, Mike Green. He got some of the best footage, I believe, in Uwharrie, and they used it on the show. It's the squeaky footage, and one comes up and gets a Zagnut candy bar.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have candy bar wrappers with the bite radiuses in it. The Zagnut candy bar wrappers with the bite radiuses in it from that Squatch. I've seen that Squatch with my own eyes. I know that what he had was very legit, and then the BFRO, they kind of poo-pooed it. They put just enough doubt into it to disenfranchise his video, and the only reason they done it is because had Matt Moneymaker been the one that took that shot that would have been the real deal. But since somebody else got the footage and he didn't, he's got to throw as much doubt into it as he can. But I'll vouch behind that was the real deal. But after that aired and Mike Green wrote a book, talking bad about a whole bunch of people, he started hunting them. He was out there with a 50 cal, physically hunting them. And I know that he didn't know enough about them to actually accomplish what he was setting out to do, but he was actively out there trying to kill one.
Yeah, and when you bump into him at the campsite or in a store down there, he'd be happy to show you all his legal documents that he was fighting the BFRO with.
Yeah. The BFRO's left a lot of bad taste in a lot of people. A lot of investigators, just like myself, their areas were ruined because BFRO made it public. But God forbid you let one of their places be,
Right.
Let me ask you this, you guys. What about the mapping system they have? Do you agree with the mapping system? I'm kind of 50-50 on that.
That was one of the reasons that I quit doing reports and I just finally got away from it altogether. Before it was very confidential where things happened and where, you could give the county, but that was it. Now we had to start putting coordinates in, GPS coordinates exactly where it happened. And it just, too much information going out to the public at large. This should have been, you can share the county, but don't share almost the exact location. And
especially on private property.
Right. And I didn't do it. I wouldn't do it. So, and if I did, I would change the coordinates up enough to where it didn't identify the exact location. It'd be close, but it wouldn't be the exact. And then I just quit doing it altogether because I didn't feel good with what they were asking us to do.
Ed, do you have an opinion on that?
It was interesting when I first encountered it, but I don't like to share in any of the spots.
That BFRO map, is that just BFRO reports?
I haven't looked at it since 2014, but going back to 2014, yeah, that was pretty much. But you only see what's posted. There's hundreds and hundreds more reports that never get published. And, just the ones that somebody physically picked up, like somebody like myself would pick that report up, investigate it, do a report on it. Then it would have to be approved before it got posted. But that's just probably 10% of the actual sightings that are actually turned in every year. There's thousands.
Right. Yeah, that's what I go by. Like 1 in 10 are reported.
Yeah,
it's many. Yeah, I've seen the BFRO map and down in Southeast Mass and up here. I know of many reports that just don't make it, and it's too bad because I think it would cover the United States, well, except in the middle.
And it will, and they purposely leave a lot of them off for their purposes.
Yeah. Now I found they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You find that too? Okay. Yeah. Anywhere you've got forest and water and deer.
And it doesn't have to be wilderness either. I've taken more reports around the farming communities than out into the,
chicken farms, pig farms. We have a lot of those in North Carolina. It seems to be the common denominator when someone shares something with me.
And if they are using the farm for food, they're not necessarily taking the livestock. They're taking the feed. They're going after the chicken feed or the horse feed. One of the things I bait them when I put up a bait station or a gifting station is I take sweet feed and hang it in a burlap sack and hang it about 10 feet up. They love sweet feed. Every animal loves sweet feed, but
I would think I would prefer meat over sweet feed. I mean, if you got 10 chickens in there or a hog, I don't know, but I mean, but I readily admit you know more than me. Your experience is so much more than.
What you got to look at it this way: when they kill a deer, do they eat the muscle tissue or they eat the organs? What has the most bang for the buck? They'll burn more calories trying to digest the meat than they would if they dissolved a easily digested liver or intestines or the partially digested food, just like a coyote does. It starts at the butt and works its way in.
Yeah. Do you
Same way with
find no scavengers after the Bigfoot kill a deer? Do you get any scavengers on that deer?
I've never tracked one that long to see,
Okay.
but I do know of one that it disappeared right quick. But unless like hard winter time, they eat what they can get their hands on. But going back to the chicken feed or the animal feed, they get more calorie intake and carbs off of the feed than they do off of the meat. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They need more carbs than they need proteins in the wintertime, just like we do. And fats.
Right. Yeah, I found that the deer kills that were done by the creatures, Bigfoot, they're not scavenged. The meat just rots and turns into jerky. And then they'll come back once everything's gone, the bugs have eaten everything, then they bury the bones. But they don't do this often, but because it was close to my house, they put the head of the deer on a stump. And it was looking at my recorder. And I kept turning it around. Yeah, and they kept turning it back. And then I realized they made a line of bones right to my recorder. And I realized it was the recorder they had the deer looking at. They didn't want it out there.
Yep.
And you were nodding your head when he said that. Did that something you've heard before, or are you just amazed?
It was just interesting to me. I was thinking of when we were talking about the deer and the hardship in the winter, the documentary that Matthew Delph was in on Amazon Prime, where he was talking about North Carolina having the rainforest and the abundance of food and forage and fauna and to support large populations of animals. They did a bear count and said there was plenty of capability to sustain large animals.
Right. All right, I have a research question here. Do you think that the foot tracks, the hair, the feces, the DNA, do you think that evidence has been played out and we need to figure out a different way to research these creatures? I mean, we've been getting that evidence for 50 years plus years now, and it hasn't seemed to make a difference.
It's going to take a body. Even a DNA sample is not going to work. It's going to take a physical specimen and it'll have to be done the right way so it's not seized by the powers to be. But
good luck with that.
Yeah, it's that's what it's going to take, though. It's going to take a body.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. What about like trying to interact with them? Do you think we could ever get close enough to actually be right there with them?
Personally, I've come as close as I think you'll ever get, and that's just them freely coming up and feeling comfortable to get close to you. And when I say close, just outside of lantern range when you're sitting in camp, your light casts the light out and they'll come up just within that range. But as far as a one-on-one, I don't think I don't see that happening. I know there's people that claim that they exchange gifts with them and talk with them and stuff, and I've not had that experience.
What about going out and mimicking their behaviors, cracking nuts, eating deer bones, or eating deer guts, or something like that?
I mean, if you want to try it,
I can't say I haven't tried it.
like the cracking nuts. I can
That's
see
what
that.
I
It's
do.
just like chopping wood. It's
Right.
like I say it. I've said it 1,000 times. We are their TV. We are their entertainment. When we go to the woods, we are entertaining them, and they look at us as a curiosity. If you go enough times, they get used to you and they realize you're not a threat. Then they'll start getting closer and closer and closer, and you can work out a relationship that way. But yeah, if you want to go out in the middle of the woods and start breaking nuts, that'll draw them in. Now, what you do with that, if you start pointing at them and looking at them, if you just
Right. Yeah, I don't do that.
just
That's one thing that's one thing you can't do is you can't look at them. Maybe give a quick glance, but look right back away.
Yeah, don't stare at them. Don't point at them. Don't everybody turn your attention to the right because there's where the squatch is. If you continue to do what you're doing, they will come in. If you're in a good area,
they do.
They're going to come in and check you out.
They come in. They'll get behind a stone wall or they'll get behind a tree, and they just watch me. I fell asleep out in the woods one day, and I get up to leave, and I usually go straight down the hill, and that's where the path is. But I decided to go to the left to go follow the wall down, and a red one, I think it was a female, tall, slender, like a basketball player, just stood right up and walked to a tree and slid behind a tree, and it was gone. And then it ran down the hill and started hooting because it wanted me to go down the hill, wanted me out of there.
Yep.
They don't like to be seen, No.
And going back to where Victoria and Ed's talk about down in the Cumnock area, I had the privilege of going down there with Sam Parker. He was had a lot of stuff going on his land, and I spent some time with him just before he passed away, doing an investigation on the land and the land around him. We spent 6 hours on four-wheelers and never really touched the same piece of property. Spent a lot of time out there. On the way back in that afternoon, it hadn't even got dark. We were on 3 4-wheelers running wide open down the side of a bean field, and the river was on the other side, right beside us, and we had one roar at us so loud that you could hear it over all 3 4-wheelers running. So we shut the bikes down. I took off running toward it, and one of the guys, his nephew, was with us. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You want to see a Sasquatch? Let's go." And we run into the river reeds, and just as we got into the reeds, it started whooping real loud, and then it's gone.
Huh. You ever wonder why they do that? Like, you weren't really looking for them, were you?
Oh yeah, we were actively researching the area. We found a long track line, 16-inch tracks going across the bean field. We were out there filming that, measuring it. We were looking for them, and I think they were watching us the whole time we were out there. They were keeping up with us, and we were leaving. They knew it. They roared at us. We stopped. We interacted with them a little bit longer, but that was broad daylight. They're doing the whoops and the roar. But when you go into the woods, you're being watched as soon as you go. If you're in their area, when you step in the woods, they're watching it. That's another reason game cams don't really work. They watch you set them up most of the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I noticed they always monitor the entrance to the woods. They'll sit and watch where people come in. And usually if you don't go in the entrance, come in another way, that's when you'll have a sighting or an encounter of some sort.
And one of my early days in Uwharrie, when we started researching that, this brand new territory. We were going out in different areas. Every time we left, we went a new way, bushwhacking. And they got to where they would start marking where we would go into the forest at. They would take these loops and take a sapling and then bend it over and loop it around. And they were marking where we were going into the woods and where we were coming back in at. So they're physically keeping up with what you're doing in the woods.
Have you found any marked trails that they use?
Oh yeah.
I find road crossing is where I find the snap trees and snap branches. But other than that, I don't find much.
Yeah, if you're walking down a human trail, whether it's a trails or whether it's a road or a Forest Service road or a hiking trail. Usually, when you come up on an intersection, you'll find a stick structure off to the right or the left in the corner where it makes the turn. They'll mark at.
And you think they use it?
Yep.
They use it. Okay. So Ed, would you go researching alone at night?
Yeah, I would.
You would go out there. Okay.
It out there.
Well, no, that's good.
I like you, Ed. You just, what the hell? I don't care. I got this.
Yeah, because I used to go
PPs?
into the woods at night. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Would you go by yourself without a pew pew?
Yeah.
Dude, he's nuts. All right,
That's
moving
crazy.
on. He is.
So
He got a
so
little
Ed understands that they're probably not going to hurt him. He's not a threat to them. So
Ed's been drinking that muddy Carolina water too long. That's what it is.
I have backpacked and taken my daughter with me and camped at some of these places, and didn't have anything really happen.
I think that's awesome that you take your daughter out. I think that is awesome. Because let me tell you something from a daddy's girl. Those are times she'll never forget. Ever, ever. You're a good dad. You may not talk a lot, but you're a good dad.
Come on.
So David, something interesting you said about the deer that I asked you did it look like the ribs had been caved in or punched in that area? I was speaking with Will Jevons, and they found a horse like that. And come to find out, that's food of choice for them up west, for the wild horses. And they find them with the ribs punched in, like the ribs broke like a hole in the ribs. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's either a punch or they're throwing a good softball sized rock at them.
Rock, yeah.
And they're throwing it with enough force to break the ribs, and it makes a circular. It crushes the rib cage in a circular pattern.
Mm-hmm. I figured it was rocks. I don't know how fast a horse can run, or a wild horse can run. I have to look that up. But yeah, we actually were recording a podcast and that come up, and I never knew that was their food of choice. But they said carcasses they were finding had just a perfect round break in the ribs, so it was just wild. So that it's kind of weird that you find that in different areas, different animals, but active areas. I mean,
I found a beaver that it looked like the beaver was laying on its back, and it looked like the creature grabbed it and pushed its fingers through the spine to get all the guts out. The spine was cracked in the back, almost like you'd eat a lobster tail. Oh, you guys have lobster, right? Yeah. It was very strange. It really looked like he pushed from the back, ripped its stomach open, and then pushed from the spine to get everything to come out.
Yeah, they're going after the innards.
Right. But instead of it's almost like he just pushed them right out into his mouth. Make it easy for him.
It's like eating a burrito.
Right.
Yeah,
I've heard them getting raccoons up here. They eat raccoons. I'm sure they get porcupines. But I've heard raccoons more than once get attacked by these things. And all you hear is a big thump and a muffled raccoon growling its last few breaths.
Raccoons taste like chicken.
Yeah.
Ed, what would you give someone that's interested in the subject? You sit down with someone let me just throw in a wild card there. Someone that was interested in the subject but was a diehard non-believer.
Go out into the woods.
All right, carry on.
With an open mind.
Yeah, and the worst thing that'll happen is you're out in the woods having a good time out in the woods.
Right. I got to ask you, Ed, something. When you brought your daughter camping, were you hoping that your daughter might have these creatures come in? Because they do have a fascination for children.
Well, you know,
I hate to say that, but I was wondering if it ever crossed your mind while you were out there.
there is the whole bait concept, right?
Squash bait.
Right.
I've been bait. I've been bait several times.
Okay. All
Squash
right.
bait.
I did want to answer. There was a question up on the screen about a sweet smell, and I've smelled something. You know, West Pennsylvania and Ohio, we had something called skunk cabbage, very musky. You know, it almost smells like skunk. You know, so we have you know, some of the swampy areas, just the skunk cabbage, and they give off a strong odor, but not necessarily a sweet smell.
Have you guys
That
had
was-
any smells? Oh, sorry, Vic.
I'm sorry, that was very interesting because the lady that asked you that is from Pennsylvania. So, but go ahead, Don. We've
wondered.
had you guys on for 2 hours already. So, all right, Don, I'm gonna shut up, dude. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just asking if you've smelt anything out there, Dave or Ed.
Yeah, I have.
And
One of the encounters we had was a male, and we had been watching a young one, and we had been watching this young one for probably 30 minutes, and it was kind of pinned down. It didn't have anywhere to go, and the big male just started stomping up the hill, like purposely drawing our attention to him. I wouldn't break contact with the little one I was watching, juvenile, but that one got really agitated with us, and then it put off that. It's got a real strong musky smell. It's so strong you can just about taste it. But if you're familiar with deer musk smell, if you find a deer scraping woods where a doe has urinated on it, and if you scrape that soil up and smell it, it's very close to that, but it's 10 times stronger than that. It's a real musky odor when they're mad at you anyway.
yeah, I've only smelt the sulfur smell emit from them. Although I did smell something come through my window one night years ago, and it smelled like burnt fingernail and like cat feces mixed together. It was a stank. But I think that was just the smell of the creature. I'm not sure. But and then that sulfur rotten egg smell, I think that was something he admitted.
Yeah, I think different animals, if they get scared or they get mad, they put off pheromones, different smells. We do too.
Right.
But yeah, I've smelt the musky smell, the kind of a wet hay, kind of mildew type smell. But that's about it.
Water.
Yeah, it depends on what area you're in. If they're bedding on the grass, if they're bedding down in a grass bed that they've made, over time that grass starts to mildew, and they pick it up on their hair. They're going to smell like what they slept in. If they eat it, if they're eating out of a rotten deer carcass, they're going to get that deer carcass smell on them, and it's just going to have to wear off or wash off. So I think a lot of the smells we're getting is what they're eating, the residue that's on them. I mean, just look at an African lion. Whenever it feeds on an antelope, it's covered in blood. Same thing with a squatch. When it feeds on an animal or any other, or a plant that has a smell to it, that smell's going to be on him as well as his natural smell. So
when you take your dogs for a walk, they go out and roll around in the grass and in the leaves and stuff.
Yep.
Right. So Ed, what are your daughters? What is it? Margaret and Elizabeth. What do they think about what you do?
I think they're just glad I'm out doing something.
Do they believe in the creature?
No, they don't believe.
Okay, right. No, I have a friend of mine. I go over their house. It's it's just her and her daughter, And whenever I go to their house, now they didn't believe in it, so I did a couple calls there. And ever since I did the calls there, she calls me up all the time. Those owls are here again. She's convinced they're owls. And every time I go there, they follow me around the yard in the woods. It's her father that's finally understanding something weird is going on, because every time I'm there, the owls are hooting at me. And the daughter, she's 8 now. She doesn't believe in them, and she refuses to acknowledge what's going on in the woods. I don't believe in them, so I don't hear that. But it definitely is I don't know. It's something to understand first before you can really believe in them. It's as a kid, I grew up near the swamp, and my dad had heard about the stories ever since he grew up. So I was hearing the stories as a kid, and I always believed in them. I just didn't understand that there was more than one. I didn't understand how many there are out there, and they're in they're right in cities. Well, outside the large cities, but they're right there where people live, and people don't get it. They don't believe me. But then every once in a while, there'll be a sighting right in these areas. So they live pretty close to humans. I think they really have to keep an eye on us.
Well, they're feeding off of us too. They're feeding off of our garbage. We're a resource.
Right. But if you have a group that lives, say, a mile in the woods or a half mile in the woods from a house, it would have to keep an eye on that human to know where it was, to make sure they weren't coming out. So, yeah, I how many species or types of these creatures do you think there are?
My own personal opinion, there's 2, and then there's others. But Bigfoot, I think it's Bigfoot, Dogman. I think is one and the same. Just depends on how people have a reaction with it, how they seen it, how good of a look they got on it. A lot of the ones I've seen look like a dog in the face. Is that a dog man? I don't know. I've never seen portray a dog man up close and personal. It's on my bucket list, but I go by what I've experienced. I'm not saying a dog man's not out there. What I'm seeing may be a dog man. I'm just calling it a Bigfoot.
Right. That would make sense to what happened to me. I did a podcast. I saw it looked like a dog man. It looked like a raptor when it ran, but it had a dog head and it had a tail though. And there were 2 of them. And I did a podcast a couple days later, and I brought all kinds of activity around here. Helicopters, people parked in front of my house. But each night, the Bigfoot were here screaming at me because of what was going on. But it didn't make sense because they weren't interested in the Bigfoot. They were interested in what I had seen. But the Bigfoot they were pissed. They were pissed of what was going on. So, that would kind of fall into what you believe, that they're the same or maybe from the same family or they knew each other somehow. It just didn't make sense why the Bigfoot was screaming at me while helicopters were 3/4 mile away or a mile away looking for these other things. They're highly intelligent. Do you find that they're very highly intelligent, these things?
Yeah. They're just when you think you've got them figured out, they work their magic and they spin things and they do stuff you've never expected them to do before or they've never done before. They can stay a step ahead of you. I figured out, it's took me a long time to figure out how to get them on night vision with an IR shining on them. There's a trick to it, but that's about the only thing I can say I figured out on. It's how to fake them, how to fool them.
Do you think they're naturally intelligent like that, or they got that intelligence from watching us?
No, I think they're naturally intelligent. Okay. It's passed down from generation to generation, and they're very cautious. we're in their living room. We're visiting them, so
Right.
they know every inch of the woods. They know where to go. And they get there a whole lot more efficient than we can. Physically, they can do things differently than we can, and that's how they're stay one step ahead of us. Every once in a while, they slip up, and you see one crossing the road or crossing the trail up in front of you, or they mess up and they get a game cam picture of them. But you got to trick them to really get something. You really got to outsmart them, and it's hard.
Yeah. People that go missing. Do you think it's from these creatures? Not all the people, but some of them.
I think a lot of it is. I'm sorry. I don't think they all want to be your friend. I know that weren't directed to me, but there I could put my 2 cents in. So there's that. Anyway, moving on.
I think they're creatures of opportunity. If the right circumstances and the right conditions are met, you're just, you fall in the food chain.
Yeah, 99% of the aggressive encounters up here involve a gun, is what I found. If you've got a gun and you pull it out, it's not going to go well.
Yep.
That's what I just find around here. And they live close to the humans around here, too. From here all the way down to Mass, and I'm sure down even further and up even further. Up in northern Maine, they're more aggressive up there, but there's less people up there.
Yeah, so they don't have they're down here. They're encountering humans whether we know it or not all the time. They're around a lot of people. The population of people. There's very few places that are vast, forest. Even in Uwharrie is surrounded by farms and roads, and the military trains in there. They're exposed to humans a whole lot more, so they know how to interact with us. We're not a strange creature to them. You get off in certain other parts of the country where the population density is not as bad. They're not interacting with humans as much, and they don't know how to treat us. We're automatically a threat, so they can treat you like a threat. They're doing everything they can to get you out of their area or out of their home, just like we would if somebody comes into our home. We try to get them out, right? They're doing the same thing.
Right.
But if you're used to the bad part of town and you're always having to deal with people in your yard or sleeping on your front porch or whatever, you kind of get used to it, and it's like kick the guy out, go, be gone. If it rarely happens, then you go out there with a pew pew and say, hey, you need to leave.
Right.
Cody had a good comment. He says, to me, it's crazy if you think there are not other creatures out there with all this wilderness areas. Good point, Cody. I believe.
Right.
So we've been going on for 2 hours, 30 minutes. Ed, you have been very quiet. We're going to let you say whatever you did not get to say in this program, and you can't shortchange us, buddy.
No, Dave's got to get him a sighting.
Yeah, we gotta get a sighting. And this guy, this Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot, man, I think we need to go out with him.
I love him. He's got a channel. I love Tennessee. Okay. I'll get him out to you. We'll talk about that behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then like last time Dave was on your channel, Johnny was talking. Your husband Johnny was talking about getting another event going. We still haven't seen anything from him on that.
I know Line Crippus will be doing something, so you guys are welcome to be there. So we'll put it there. You guys, I have to coordinate with Johnny and.
Well, I think we just got an invite from Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot.
All right. Line it up.
All right.
Hey, they're veterans, man. One of his buddies, they're veterans. Thank you for your service, buddies. But yeah, you guys will have to hit Johnny up on that. So that really weren't saying anything, Ed.
What was that?
You've had to have some kind. That really weren't saying anything, Ed. You kind of deflected the. I used to be a cop. I know what you're doing. You've had to have some kind of adventure or good experience or something you want to put on the table and share. And
No, I just go out there and enjoy being out, and hopefully we'll have some good encounters.
You will
Okay.
eventually, yeah.
We'll take that. We'll take that. It was like pulling teeth, but thank you, Ed. We'll take that, sir.
I did fine.
Well, we'll keep you, Ed. We'll keep you. Dave.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was interesting. Yeah, I love learning about different areas of the country, little different behaviors, a little different on the creature sizes. And yeah, it was good to hear it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Well, thank you for inviting me to come on.
Oh, you're
David,
welcome.
you know I love you, and I love Trish for trusting you to go out with me. And that just means the world to me when you say, hey, I want to go out with Nikki, or even if it was just me by myself. I love Trish for trusting me like that. And I guess I'll see you guys in New Warrior. You let me know when you guys are back down there. If Johnny don't go, I have a Jeep. We'll travel. And
Okay.
if he will go, I'll just throw him in the Jeep and take him with me. And I've enjoyed having you both on. It's awkward closing it. Don, damn it, you close it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Ed. Hopefully, everything it came out very well here. I think it did. A lot of good questions coming in tonight. And hopefully we'll see you guys again after Ed has a sighting. And he'll have more to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah. But I want to thank you guys again and thank Miss V. And I think that should do it for the night, right?
Yeah. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Enjoyed the questions.
Yep.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.